Hello, welcome back to another maths lesson. Just before we start today's lesson, I just want to say how amazing I think you all are. I've been just stunned with how hard you're working, how much you're getting involved with this, and how many of you are kind of getting onto the challenge threes and just working really hard to get this done. I'm a very proud teacher, I will tell you that now. Just to see what you've done, I've just marked yesterday's work and I'm just so impressed. So I take my hat off to you and say well played. Okay, so brilliant. Right, today's job, we're going to look at rounding numbers to the nearest 10. Okay, now rounding numbers, it's important to know, what does rounding mean? Now when we say rounding numbers, we mean changing a number to a multiple of 10 or 100 or 1000, and these numbers all end in zeros, which are round. And this is a good way to remember rounding numbers. They all end in a zero, which is round. Okay, now we're going to look at rounding to the nearest 10. Now it's important to remember, when you round to the nearest 10, to think about your place value. So with this number we have 251, there are hundreds, there are tens, and there are ones. We have 5 tens in this number. Now your first job when you get a number is you're going to put the two multiples of 10 that the number comes between on each side. Now just for now, I'm going to ignore this 200 because I'm looking at multiples of 10 here, so I'm going to look at my tens number. Now I'm going to think 51 comes between 50, because a multiple of 10 has to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and you can go on to 100 as long as you count in tens. But here, 51, I know, comes between 50 and 60. But this 200 I've ignored here. I need to make sure I add it back in to both numbers. So now I know 251, I'm going to pretend that line isn't there anymore, 251 comes between 250 and 260. If I were to do that again, say if we go for 772, I know that's the hundreds, the 700s, 7 tens, 7 twos. Now if I want to put on either side the multiple of 10 that number comes between, I'm just going to ignore my hundreds for a second. So I'm just going to cross that out. I'm going to pretend that's not there. And look at 72. Now if I'm thinking of 72, I know that 72 comes between 70 and the next 10 after 70 is 80. I'll give you a little clue here, a little tip. This 7 here, on this side, if it's a 7, well, it's always 70. Here, if this one's a 5, that one's always 50. Okay, so you can kind of see there's a bit of pattern. So 70 and 80. But remember, add the hundreds back on. So 772 comes between, if you were talking about multiples of 10, 770, 780. Let's try one more. Think of a number. Right, 321. Okay, so we're going to think about the two multiples of 10 that this number will come between. Okay, so let's get rid of our 300 just for now. Now 21. Now I remember if that's a 22 there, well, it's 20 this side. And 10 more than 20 is 30. So 21 comes between 20 and 30. But remember, that's 321. So you have to add your 300 back to each number. So 321 comes between 320 and 330. Now, when you attempt your questions, okay, I would like you to do that first. So you kind of put in the multiples of 10 that number comes between. Your second job is to look at the ones digit in the number here. So remember, this is the ones. If we're looking at 251, and there's a lot of crossing out here, you're going to round that number to either 250 or 260. Now, I remember Dennis's rhyme that I hope to use before. If it's 4 or less, let it rest on the lower number. If it's 5 or more, let it soar up to the bigger number. Now, 1's less than 4, so we're going to let it rest. So I'm going to circle 250. So if you were rounding 251 to the nearest 10, it would be 250. Now let's look at this number. 772. Remember, look at the 1's number. 2. Well, I know that's less than 4, so less than 4. No, that's not the rhyme. 4 or less, let it rest. So it can rest on the lower number. Quite good. This one, look at the 1's number, 321. Again, less than 4. No, 4 or less, let it rest. Now, let's try one, because we're going to have to do one that goes higher. We need one to soar. So let's pick on 878. Now, remember, first job, the two multiples of 10, the 878 comes between. So we want 1, the higher one here, lower one here. Now remember, I'm going to think about my 10s first. So I'm going to cross out my 8 for now. So 78. Now 78 comes between your 70, because you've got your 7 there. So 70 and 10 more than 70 is 80. But I need to put that 8 back on. So I'll put my 8 on there to make 880 and 8 on there to make 870. So I've got to choose. If I'm rounding 878 to the nearest 10, I've got to decide which one of those two is the nearest 10. So I look at my 1's number. I think, well, 8's bigger than 5, so 5 or more, let it soar. Let's get it to that bigger number. And that's what you have to do. Okay? So your first number, your first challenge is 147. So what I would do, write challenge 2 in here, in your margin, put number 1, and write 147. I know I haven't got my maths book yet, I will try and get it tomorrow. Don't write it over here, because then you won't have any space to put any of your answers. So write it there. Think about what numbers, or what multiples of 10 will 147 come between. So just think, let's get rid of that 1 for now. What multiple of 10 does 47 come between? Well, there's 40. I know that because there's the 4 there. And then 10 more than 40 is 50. So put that this side. But remember, you have to put the 1 back. And then you have to think, let's have a look at the 1's column on 147. Is it 4 or less, let it rest? Or is it 5 or more, let it soar? Now, I'm not going to answer that one. I'm going to let you do that one. But hopefully that shows you how you can kind of set it out. Okay? Right, so there's 6 questions to try for challenge 2, and I'm sure you can do them all. On challenge 3, I've put some thousands numbers. If you're doing challenge 3, say for example you're doing 2,559. If I'm trying to round this to the nearest 10, so remember this is challenge 3. Okay, if I'm rounding that to the nearest 10, this is my 10's number here. It's the 50. So I'm just going to think about, I'm going to cross both of these out this time. I'm just going to think 59. And the first multiple of 10 is the 50, because I've got my 5 there. So I'm going to write 50 that side. And 10 more than 50 is 60. But this time, instead of just putting on the hundreds number, which is 5, I've got to put the thousands number as well. So I've got to put 25, really. So I'm going to put my 25 there, and my 25 there. So that makes 2,550, 2,560. Then I look at my 1's number, and that's 9. And I'm thinking 5 or more, let it soar. Will I go to the bigger number? So I can circle that one. So I'm sure you can give challenge 3 a try. Okay, what you need to think of is where's the tens, cross out the other ones, and it's just the same as challenge 2. But remember, you have to add the thousands and hundreds number back at the end so you know which one to go to. Okay, good luck and goodbye.